It's my fault, but in the end it's my fault because I probably did wrong, but you shouldn't be picking at me. Don't pick at anybody. Don't bother anybody. You get picking at somebody, you know what happens? You get picking at a dog, it'll bite you.
Not being happy with where my life is going, I decided to change it, and I took it and put it in my own hands. I had work clothes on, and I went to work and built some cars that no one's ever seen before.
Okay? So don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, what am I gonna do? Start from the half, go
Start.
1, 2, 3, go over
No,
here, 1.
no, just go right straight up. Just go right straight up.
In August 2017, Chad Hiltz proposed to Jolene MacIntyre after years of building his custom car empire. He had a hit Discovery Channel show, a thriving business, and his son working alongside him.
It's not what you have, it's what you can make.
By every conventional measure, success had finally arrived. Yet, beneath the surface of professional triumph lies a darker story. One of a man who achieved his lifelong dream while simultaneously destroying the family relationships that should have mattered most. What happened to Bad Chad?
Some people have opinions, some people have thoughts, and they say things, or somebody says something, and they really don't take the time and think. And that's why I always say it's easier to judge because you don't have to think.
Join us as we unveil what they found in Bad Chad's garage that alarmed everyone. Dreams built on sacrifice. Chad Hiltz of Bad Chad Customs is often called a mad genius, a backyard wizard who can turn just about anything into a show-stopping car. Fans joke that he could probably pull a Bugatti out of a chicken coop, but he wasn't always this influential. He was born in Kingsport, Nova Scotia, a small seaside village where opportunities were limited. His father, Doug, owned a White Rose gas station, while his mother, Patricia, drove a 1946 Dodge and shared her son's enthusiasm for automobiles. The family represented working-class Canada at its most typical, modest and far removed from wealth or privilege. Young Chad's fascination with automobiles went beyond casual interest. Every vehicle that rolled into his father's gas station became an object of intense study. The craftsmanship and the engineering captured his imagination in ways that school and conventional childhood pursuits never did. His uncle's 1956 Ford Crown Victoria became a particular obsession, representing everything Chad hoped to build one day. The problem facing this ambitious teenager was purely economic. Chad was long on imagination but short on cash, as Discovery Channel would later describe him. His dreams demanded resources the family simply didn't possess. But Doug Hiltz recognized something valuable in his son's determination. When Chad turned 16, his father made a remarkable sacrifice. He sold a rare hockey card collection to purchase a 1934 Ford three-window coupe. This wasn't merely a transaction between father and son. This was a working-class parent betting everything on a teenager's vision of the future. That same year, however, Chad's life took an unexpected turn that would define every choice that followed. At 16 years old, he became a father. The details surrounding this first child remain sparse across all public records. The mother's identity, the circumstances of the relationship, and the aftermath all exist in a fog of deliberate silence. What remains clear is the basic fact: before finishing high school, before developing any real understanding of adulthood, Chad bore responsibility for another human life. This moment represents the first fracture in what would become a pattern. A teenage boy who should have been focused on developing his craft and building his future suddenly faced an impossible choice between passion and responsibility. The historical record suggests this conflict never reached resolution. Instead of choosing one path over the other, Chad attempted to pursue his dreams, while the responsibilities of fatherhood remained largely unaddressed. The years that followed saw Chad hustling through various jobs: grain mills, automotive shops, whatever paid the bills. while he continued building cars in his spare time. The dream never faded. But neither did the growing list of people left behind in its pursuit.
The reason I'm spraying at high pressure is because I don't want texture. I don't want texture in the paint.
By his mid-20s, Chad had already established the pattern that would repeat throughout his adult life. Relationships formed, children conceived, and then the inevitable dissolution, as the garage always called louder than family obligations. At 27, Chad married for the second time. Carla Mooring became his wife, and on April 10, 1998, their son Colton was born. For a brief moment, stability seemed possible. A wife, a son, a chance to build something lasting beyond custom cars. That hope lasted approximately 1 year. After just 12 months following Colton's birth, the marriage ended in divorce. The boy would grow up primarily with his mother, seeing his father only occasionally, a fact that would later be confirmed on national television. The pattern accelerated. In 1999, Chad met Mandy Mosher. The relationship produced a daughter, Harley Hiltz, born on August 15, 2004. Chad moved with Mandy and Harley to oceanfront property in Kingsport and opened his first serious car customization shop. This time felt different. This time it seemed like it might actually work. But like clockwork, this relationship also deteriorated. Chad never publicly revealed the reasons for the separation from Mandy, maintaining a silence that speaks volumes about either trauma, regret, or an unwillingness to confront uncomfortable truths. By the mid-2000s, the scorecard read clearly: 3 children by 3 different women, with Chad largely absent from all their lives. Colton lived with his mother and saw his father occasionally at best. Harley grew up watching her father prioritize the garage over family dinners and school events. The first daughter remained virtually erased from the public narrative, her name not even consistently spelled across different sources. This wasn't a man struggling with relationships. This was a man who had chosen his craft over every person who needed him, repeatedly and deliberately. But what happens when dedication to building something becomes all-consuming? And what happens when the people who should matter most become casualties of ambition?
Never been this many cars here before 9 o'clock. I'm having a big feeling that it's going to be a full house today. I like this little hot rod, eh? Tony Cadet? Yeah, cool. Looks good, man.
When obsession becomes success. Settling in Canning, Nova Scotia during the mid-2000s, Chad Hiltz committed fully to the vision that had consumed him since childhood. He built his shop by hand and named it Green Goblin Customs, a reference to the Spider-Man villain that seemed appropriate for someone who was simultaneously brilliant and somewhat monstrous in his single-minded focus. This wasn't just another garage. This was where Chad would finally prove that his sacrifices had been worth it. What separated Chad from countless other custom car builders was his approach to the craft. Without access to expensive parts or state-of-the-art equipment, he developed a methodology based on resourcefulness and imagination. Materials came from airplanes, boats, old lockers, anywhere scraps could be found and repurposed. Other builders relied on money and conventional parts. Chad relied on vision and an almost supernatural ability to see potential in objects others considered garbage. Under the mentorship of Gene Winfield, a legendary figure in the custom car world, Chad began to understand that his work transcended simple mechanics. This was art expressed through metal and machinery. The cars he built made statements that conventional vehicles never could. The Green Goblin featured no doors and positioned the engine in the back. The Bat Out of Hell incorporated doorknobs salvaged from kitchen cabinets. These weren't practical vehicles for daily transportation. These were rolling sculptures that challenged assumptions about what automobiles could be. Recognition arrived gradually, then suddenly. Chad won 3 awards at the World of Wheels show in Boston, an international competition where the world's best builders showcased their work. He took home 4 awards from the Castrol Radical Speed Sports Show in Moncton. The Master Builder Award followed. First place for Radical Custom. These awards were prestigious acknowledgments from the international custom car community that Chad Hiltz had achieved mastery of his craft. The reputation spread. Enthusiasts traveled from around the world to see what emerged from Green Goblin Customs. Each build pushed boundaries further than the last. Each project demonstrated that with sufficient obsession and talent, impossible transformations could be achieved. Chad was becoming legendary in certain circles, not famous in the mainstream sense, but respected among people who understood the craft at the highest levels. Then, in 2019, Discovery Channel came calling. Bad Chad Customs premiered in January, broadcasting Chad's work to millions of viewers who had never heard of him. The show reportedly paid around $100,000, transforming Chad from a respected regional builder into a national television personality. Suddenly, the kid from Kingsport who used to watch old cars at his father's gas station was demonstrating his genius to a massive audience. Everything Chad had worked toward for decades was finally happening. The recognition, respect, and validation that his singular focus had been justified. After years of hustling and grinding and choosing the garage over everything else, success had arrived. The dream was real, and the sacrifices had paid off. Except they hadn't. Not really. Because while Chad was achieving professional triumph, the human cost of that achievement was being documented on the same television show that celebrated his talent. The one person who should have been celebrating beside him, his own son Colton, was standing right there, hurt and resentful. How does one celebrate the greatest achievement when the person closest serves as living proof of the greatest failure?
We're in the new shop right now because Doug's working on the Thunderbird. I just want to get over here for a minute and apologize for yesterday, of my behavior, and anything I say right now, it's my fault.
The mirror. In 2018, Colton Hiltz made a decision that would expose the deepest tragedy of his father's success. At 20 years old, having spent most of his childhood with his mother and seeing Chad only occasionally, Colton moved to Canning to work at Green Goblin Customs. This was a son making one final attempt to connect with a father who had been largely absent his entire life. Bad Chad Customs captured this relationship in uncomfortable detail. The cameras documented a dynamic that the show framed as tough mentorship but revealed something far sadder underneath. Chad was hard on Colton in ways that went beyond professional standards. He questioned his son's suggestions, contested his ideas, and even demanded proof that any input was worth considering before grudgingly accepting it. The perfectionism that made Chad a genius at transforming junk into art made him incapable of offering his son unconditional support. Colton wasn't just learning the car business during those filmed interactions. He was also learning that his father's love came with conditions and requirements. Every idea had to be defended, and every suggestion had to prove its worth. The relationship operated less like father and son and more like a demanding boss and unproven employee. Working at Green Goblin gave them the opportunity to bond over their shared passion for automobiles, but it also revealed that Chad didn't know how to separate his role as a perfectionist craftsman from his role as a parent. The show's narrative tried to spin this dynamic positively. Chad and Colton were described as having a unique relationship. The tough love was framed as character building. But viewers with any emotional intelligence could see the reality. A young man desperately seeking his father's approval, while that father remained constitutionally incapable of giving affection without also demanding performance in return. Jolene MacIntyre, Chad's fiancée, observed this dynamic with clear eyes. She sympathized with Colton but also understood this was simply who Chad was. A man who had spent so many decades relating to the world through work and achievement that he no longer knew how to connect any other way. The garage had become his entire language. He could express himself through custom builds and perfect welds, but the emotional vocabulary required for healthy parent-child relationships remained foreign territory. On camera, in front of millions of viewers, Chad and Colton discussed their fractured relationship. Colton expressed hurt about the years of absence. Chad offered explanations that sounded more like justifications. The viewing audience watched a father who had achieved everything professionally admit through his actions and words that he had failed completely at the one thing that should have mattered most, being present for his son during the years when that presence was irreplaceable. The tragedy wasn't even that Chad didn't love Colton. The tragedy was that Chad only knew how to express that love through the filter of work, performance, and conditional approval. He had spent so long believing that building something impressive was the same as building a relationship that he couldn't recognize the difference anymore. And Colton, hungry for any connection with his father, accepted these crumbs of conditional affection because they were better than the total absence he'd known throughout childhood. This brings the story to another tragedy. Harley, Chad's daughter with Mandy Mosher, who represents everything lost in the single-minded pursuit of craft. What is her story? And how does a parent reconcile fame and fortune with completely missing a child's life?
But it was my dream, and I put the hours and time in, and I'm the one who built it. I welded it, I filled it, I painted it, I helped polish it, I made the windows for it. I'm the mother hen.
The invincible child. While Colton's relationship with Chad played out on national television, another story unfolded in relative silence. The story of Harley Hiltz, Chad's daughter with Mandy Mosher. Born in 2004, Harley grew up in Nova Scotia, doing all the things children do, attending school, making friends, and pursuing interests beyond the garage that consumed her father's attention. She played soccer for Northeast Kings Education Center's team during her high school years, demonstrating athletic ability and commitment to something that had nothing to do with custom cars. The detail that reveals everything about Chad's parenting failures comes from Harley's prom night. Like many teenage girls, this represented a significant milestone, a moment when childhood officially ended and adult life began to crystallize. The person who ensured this moment was properly celebrated and documented wasn't Chad. It was Jolene MacIntyre, his fiancée. Jolene made certain Harley arrived at prom in style, pulling up in royal respect, the very first car Chad had built for Bad Chad Customs. Jolene documented the preparation, the photos, and all the moments that transform a regular evening into a cherished memory. Chad was presumably in the garage, working on the next build, chasing the next award, focused on the next transformation. The man who could spend months obsessing over perfect panel gaps and custom details couldn't find the time or emotional bandwidth to be present for his daughter's prom. The woman who had no biological connection to Harley stepped into a role that shouldn't have been empty in the first place. This represents the invisible tragedy woven through Chad's success story. Achievement and fame don't automatically translate to being present for the moments that define childhood and adolescence. Harley played soccer, attended classes, prepared for prom, and moved through all the significant milestones of growing up. Her father was achieving international recognition for his artistic vision. But those achievements happened in parallel universes that rarely intersected in meaningful ways. Jolene's role in Harley's life demonstrates both remarkable generosity and heartbreaking necessity. She fostered strong relationships with Chad's children, cementing her place in their lives through consistent presence and genuine care. She showed up. She remembered. She made efforts to ensure the kids felt valued and celebrated. These weren't her responsibilities. These were Chad's. but Chad had never learned how to fulfill them. So Jolene filled the vacuum left by his decades of absence. As for Chad's first daughter, the one born when he was 16, she exists primarily as an absence in the public record. Her name appears inconsistently across different sources. The details of her relationship with Chad remain unknown. Whether they maintain contact, whether she was raised with any involvement from her father, and whether she even considers him part of her life, all of this remains shrouded in deliberate or accidental obscurity. One child, zero public information. A human being reduced to a footnote in her father's story, if she appears at all. 3 children, 3 different mothers. One man who proved incapable of or unwilling to balance fatherhood with his consuming passion. The question that haunts this narrative is unavoidable. If success requires abandoning the people who need you most, can it legitimately be called success at all? By 2019, when Bad Chad Customs premiered, Chad Hiltz had achieved professional success most people only dream about. Estimated wealth around $90 million, fame, and respect as an artist. But also a man in his late 40s looking back at a life where everything had been sacrificed for craft, only to realize that craft couldn't provide what had been searched for all along: love, connection, family. At what point does success stop mattering? When does recognition feel hollow when the people who should know someone best don't actually know them at all?
As we made a deal with TV, I built the cars, they made the show. And basically that's how it goes. But me and Jolene own the cars.
The Second Chance. November 2016 marked the beginning of what appeared to be Chad's redemption arc. Jolene MacIntyre entered his life, a woman who seemed fundamentally different from his previous partners. She had played college soccer at St. Mary's University, demonstrating the discipline and commitment of a serious athlete. She understood hard work and dedication. More importantly, she seemed to grasp exactly what she was agreeing to when she began dating a man with Chad's complicated history. On August 13, 2017, Chad proposed. The engagement symbolized the possibility that maybe, finally, Chad could build something lasting with another person. Maybe the pattern of failed relationships could be broken. Maybe the man who could transform junk into award-winning automobiles could also transform himself into someone capable of sustained commitment. What makes Jolene's role in this story particularly significant is her decision to embrace all the consequences of Chad's past choices. She didn't just agree to marry Chad. She agreed to help heal a fractured family. She built relationships with his 3 children by 3 different women. She showed up for Harley's prom. She tried to help Colton navigate his complicated feelings about his father. She became the emotional glue attempting to hold together pieces that Chad had never figured out how to connect himself. Jolene became co-founder of Hiltz Auto Company, integrating herself into both Chad's business and his personal life. She demonstrated a capacity for grace and generosity that seems almost incomprehensible to anyone who hasn't stood in her position. Taking on a partner with 3 children from 3 failed relationships requires either extraordinary love or extraordinary naivety, possibly both. Yet here's the detail that undermines the redemption narrative. As of 2025, Chad and Jolene remain engaged but unmarried. 8 years have passed since the proposal. 8 years of engagement without taking the final step toward marriage. The sources don't explicitly explain this prolonged engagement, but the silence speaks volumes. Even with a woman who has proven her commitment repeatedly, even with someone who does the difficult work of maintaining relationships with his children, Chad apparently still cannot fully commit. Several interpretations present themselves. Perhaps Chad fears another failure after 3 previous relationships ended in dissolution. Perhaps the perfectionist who demands flawless execution in his car built cannot accept the inherent imperfections of marriage. Perhaps the man who has spent decades prioritizing his garage over everything else simply doesn't possess the capacity for the vulnerability that marriage requires. Or perhaps after achieving fame and recognition, Chad discovered that his obsession with building cars had atrophied his ability to build anything else.
I'm just gonna put the plastic blankets. Wanna go for a drive, Colton? Got a phone? Yeah. We're just gonna go for a drive around the block. We'll be back.
For Jolene, being engaged to Chad has never been about racing toward a finish line. Instead, it has been about fully living the experience of building something meaningful together, both in life and in the workshop. She has openly shared how deeply she enjoys being part of Chad's creative world, not just as a supportive partner, but as someone actively involved in the process. When Chad began work on the now famous Bugatti replica, Jolene saw more than just another ambitious build. She saw an opportunity to showcase his extraordinary talent to the world. That instinct is what pushed her to start documenting the project, capturing the long hours, the trial and error, and the artistry behind every handmade detail. What started as a passion project quickly became a turning point, helping launch their online audience and giving fans an unfiltered look into Chad's craftsmanship. That shared journey, part business and part love story, became a defining element of their relationship. Jolene has described it as quite a ride, a phrase that perfectly sums up the chaos, creativity, and excitement of building a life alongside someone who thrives on risk and innovation. Rather than feeling pressure to rush milestones, she's embraced the idea that some chapters are meant to unfold slowly, shaped by experience rather than deadlines. Jolene's support for Chad goes far beyond appearances. Through her posts and public comments, she consistently expresses admiration for his integrity, work ethic, and unwavering authenticity. These are qualities she values not only in a fiancé, but also in a partner and creative collaborator. Her perspective is rooted in teamwork, growing together, respecting each other's drive, and focusing on the future they are actively constructing, piece by piece. When it comes to marriage, Jolene doesn't see it as an overdue obligation. Instead, she sees it as a meaningful moment waiting for the right time. In fact, she has shared plans to use the Bugatti replica as their wedding car, putting it out there that she intends to get married but is not in a rush. What's Chad's life like now, and what is he up to?
Got the rattle out of the front. That's not rattling no more whatsoever. It's not a bad look down there. You can't see much down there. You can't see shit. Blacked out, you still see nothing.
Moving on. Chad achieved exactly what he set out to achieve and discovered it wasn't enough. The financial success demonstrated that his work had commercial value beyond personal satisfaction, but the ride hasn't been without bumps. Fans soon realized that Bad Chad Customs wasn't always as real as it seemed. Some builds were tweaked for TV, timelines compressed, and budgets often dictated by production rather than the shop itself. Not every client was who audiences thought, since Discovery funded many of the projects. After 2 seasons, the show didn't return, leaving fans disappointed and sparking speculation. Many believe creative differences played a role, with Chad wanting full control over his content, while the network had its own ideas. On top of that, cast members like Aaron Rand drew concern when they appeared less frequently, leading to online rumors about health and personal matters, though nothing was officially confirmed. Chad also faced the usual internet chatter, ranging from questions about his past to salacious, unverified claims, and fans were sometimes confused when the cars they'd seen being built on TV never ended up in buyers' hands. Production rules meant the vehicles often stayed in the shop, a detail viewers didn't initially realize. Despite all the drama and online noise, Chad kept pushing forward, though he wasn't always the influential figure he is today. While there are videos claiming Bad Chad is stepping away from everything he built, the truth is that he never really went anywhere. He simply traded television deadlines for sparks on the shop floor. Chad is still deep in the grind at his Nova Scotia workshop, doing what he's always done best, building wild, one-of-a-kind machines from imagination, scrap, and sheer stubborn talent. While his TV show may have wrapped, Chad's creative engine hasn't slowed for a second. In many ways, he's more hands-on and experimental than ever. One of his most ambitious current projects is a Bugatti replica, a bold undertaking considering the original carries a price tag north of $40 million. With no factory blueprints or luxury budgets at his disposal, Chad is recreating intricate details purely from reference photos, including a notoriously complex exhaust system. It's the kind of challenge most builders wouldn't touch. But for Chad, it's just another excuse to prove that skill beats money every time. Alongside the Bugatti, he's also breathing life into stripped-down vintage bikes built from old parts, rusted frames, and forgotten metal. These builds perfectly reflect his signature style, raw, functional, and unapologetically handmade.
I would check it over. We're going to have to check it over. We're going to have to wipe it down. We're going to have to do a bunch of stuff to that before we'd end up painting that. We have the other fender over the other side. Does Jolene want to try that fender? Or do you want to go for it? Or?
Nothing is overpolished, and nothing is wasted. If it can be reshaped, Chad will make it work. Away from the welder, Bad Chad has embraced content creation as his new main stage. Through his Bad Chad Customs YouTube channel and Instagram page, he regularly shares behind-the-scenes updates, fabrication breakdowns, shop banter, and glimpses into his everyday life. The videos feel less like a TV production and more like an open garage door, inviting fans to watch the process in real time, mistakes and all. Chad is also still showing up where it matters, car shows. From massive events like SEMA to smaller local meets, he's there not for hype, but for connection. Talking builds, swapping stories, and staying plugged into the custom car community he's always championed. Can someone who spent a lifetime building things finally learn to build the relationships that actually matter? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.